I realize that as many churches are getting ready to prepare budgets for next year, there's a bit of anxiety in the air due to the inflationary cycle we're in and with fears of a recession on the horizon. So I want to offer some ideas for you as you begin the budget building process for 2023. This is a good time to reevaluate the budget in light of the vision and mission of the congregation. Remember, first and foremost, the budget is a tool to execute your plan for ministry. So let's be sure we're focused on what matters for our vision and mission. One helpful tool is to create a zero-based budget. Essentially, you take every item in the budget that's not a fixed expense, such as a mortgage payment or any kind of long-term contract or non-negotiable financial obligation, and reset all those line items to zero. Then ask the committees or working groups that oversee those program areas in the life of the church, who are responsible for that portion of the budget, to look at the vision and mission statement, to look at their goals and objectives for the coming year that they need to fulfill their part of the ministry work, and then list only the items that are essential and project those items in their associated costs. Because many churches have been dealing with declining revenues, our budgets are pretty lean, but this is a way to ensure that what we are spending is clearly related to our common work together as a church. This financial stress test is going to give us the opportunity to eliminate some legacy items and reduce or stop programs that are either no longer effective or are not helping us fulfill our mission and vision. Property and personnel usually have the largest share of the budget and often the narrower margins for cutting costs. However, it's never a bad thing to look for possible savings, utility costs, insurance providers, or contracted services. We just want to be sure that we don't underinsure or skip necessary maintenance. If you're using a supplier for janitorial or office products, it may be time to renegotiate the price or find other ways, such as a wholesale club, to bring those costs down. These will be small numbers in terms of savings, but they do add up across the budget. When it comes to personnel, we don't want to balance the budget on the backs of the staff. In fact, the right thing to do is to look for the cost of living adjustment, or the COLA, for your area of the country, and to propose keeping your staff salaries competitive by adjusting staff salaries to include that number. Now, that may seem counterintuitive to the Personnel Committee in a time of belt tightening, but it's actually in the church's best interest to do so. Taking care of your staff has a correlation to their happiness, sense of worth, job satisfaction, and their productivity. It's also a way to model the type of behavior we want to see in the world. Advocating for the staff to get a raise, even if you didn't get one, is about doing what's right and what's fair. Nobody wants to be told that they have to work the same or more this year than last year for less pay. And when surveyed, a large number of clergy said the reason that they relocated from one parish to another was because of financial need. If in the end you just can't manage a cost of living raise, at least do your best to keep benefits at the same level. And perhaps offering maybe an extra personal day or two or a week's vacation in lieu of increased pay. That may take some of the sting out of that difficult conversation. The important thing is for the board to own that decision and not simply approve a budget proposal from the Personnel Committee that says no raises with no discussion. I know of a church that during the Great Recession just couldn't manage a pay raise for the pastor. But the church decided they would individually be able to host the pastor's family for Sunday dinner after church. And a funny thing happened. It deepened the relationships. And people ended up more invested in church. Worship attendance improved, volunteering rose, and yes, the giving went up. Now, I can't prove a direct correlation, but it's hard to believe that there wasn't one. Be creative in caring for the staff. Christmas, Easter, birthdays, anniversaries, including the date of call or ordination, present opportunities for people to express gratitude and practice generosity. Don't just say no raise and no discussion. Seek alternatives. In the end, it may be a situation where you really do have to reevaluate staffing needs and adjust portfolios. But remember, the vision and not the bottom line should be the ultimate arbiter unless your financial capacity leaves you no other choice. Do you have reserve funds that allow you to transfer money into the operational side of the budget without violating restrictions or donor intent? If so, this may be a time to include such a line item. Double-digit inflation feels a bit like a rainy day, especially if it's a relatively short-term situation. After reflecting on the vision statement and how the proposed budget reflects those values and aspirations, then be intentional about having a financial campaign. And here we don't just mean sending everyone a letter hoping they'll step up to meet the challenge. And we don't want to suggest that, well, if everyone just did $5 more a week, we might squeak by. That's simply not just or fair. Some are doing absolutely the most generous giving they have the capacity to do. And $5, well, it may be beyond their reach. Others can do a lot more than $5. They should be asked to consider it. We want equal investment and sacrifice, not equal percentages in dollars. The main focus of the campaign isn't the need for money. The story we want to tell isn't that, well, everything costs more, so therefore everybody needs to give more. The real story is about the impact of the congregation's mission. The goal is to answer two questions. What is my role as a steward, and what difference does it make? This is a great time to use the narrative style budget as a tool for helping your members understand what it is that their giving makes possible, and to help them see it not as expense centers, but as investment in the realm of God. Because that's what we're supposed to be about. We have campaign resources to help you this year. In partnership with the United Church of Christ, you can utilize our 2022 theme, From Bread and Cup to Faith and Giving. For disciples, this may sound familiar. We've done a total reboot of that popular material from 2014 with a similar name, and packed it with new ideas to give you a strong biblical and theological foundation upon which to tell your story and make your ask. You can order it at uccresources.com. The final thing I'd encourage pastors to do is to have one-on-one conversations with your high-capacity donors. Let them know what you're facing. They probably already have a pretty good idea. And help them to look at this situation as being a short-term raise in the baseline costs. That means our expenses won't necessarily return to 2021, 2022 levels, but we're not likely to be looking at year over year over year over year long-term double-digit inflation as we did in the 1980s. In fact, there are already signs that the annual inflation rate is slowing. We can't predict the future, but we can be pragmatic and hopeful at the same time. Yes, this is a stressful moment and a time to exercise caution and to enter the situation with deep prayer. But it's also a time to celebrate what God has called us to do and to invite people to be a part of it wholeheartedly, because at the end of the day, what we do as church really does matter. For the Center for Faith and Giving, I'm Bruce Barkhauer.